The Zephyrian hunting fleet descended upon Earth like locusts, their crystalline ships casting shadows across continents. Commander Vexatai watched through the observation deck as his forces herded the last group of humans into the containment vessels. These bipedal creatures would fetch excellent prices in the gladiatorial arenas of the Outer Rim. Such primitive beings, Vexatai mused to his second-in-command, flexing his 4 arms in satisfaction. No natural weapons, no protective carapace, no venom sacs. How did they even survive to develop basic technology? Subcommander Krillnex nodded his elongated skull. The preliminary scans show they're barely above the minimum intelligence threshold for arena combat. Their soft flesh should tear beautifully for the crowd's entertainment. Within the cargo holds, nearly 10,000 humans sat in cramped cells, their faces bearing expressions the Zephyrians interpreted as defeated resignation. What the aliens failed to recognize was the cold calculation behind those eyes, the way information passed between prisoners through subtle gestures and whispered words. Dr. Sarah Chen, a xenobiologist from the Beijing Research Institute, pressed her back against the cell wall and studied their captors through the energy barriers. She had spent her career studying predator-prey relationships across Earth's biomes, and now she found herself applying that knowledge in ways she never imagined. "They're efficient hunters," she whispered to the former Marine sergeant beside her. "But they think like hunters, not like wardens." Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez had been coordinating resistance movements across 3 continents before his capture. His scarred hands worked methodically, using a broken piece of metal to scrape marks into the floor. Hunters get cocky. They assume the prey stays prey. 3 days into their journey toward the gladiatorial worlds, the first phase began. It started with the children. Young Tommy Morrison, barely 12 years old, had spent his pre-capture days obsessively studying his older brother's engineering textbooks. While the guards watched the adults with suspicion, they paid little attention to a small boy who seemed to be drawing pictures on the walls with his fingernail. Those weren't pictures. They were circuit diagrams. The Zephyrians had made a critical error in their containment design. Their energy barriers were calibrated for species that relied on brute force or simple tools. They hadn't accounted for beings who could recognize that the barrier generators created a specific electromagnetic frequency that could be disrupted by creating a feedback loop using the metal components of their own ship. Dr. Chen had identified the frequency. Tommy had mapped the circuits. Sergeant Rodriguez had organized the execution. On the 4th night, as the ship traveled through hyperspace, every cell door on Deck 7 simultaneously failed. But the humans didn't run. That would have been what prey animals do. Instead, they began to hunt. Maria Santos had been a chemical engineer before the invasion. She led a team to the ship's waste processing systems, where she began synthesizing compounds that would make the Zephyrians' superior numbers irrelevant. Her expertise in industrial chemistry became expertise in biological warfare. James Park, a former tech company CEO, had memorized the ship's layout during their transfer from the transport shuttles. He guided teams through maintenance shafts, turning the Zephyrians' own vessel into a maze where the humans held every advantage. The Zephyrians discovered the escape when their night shift guards began collapsing. The humans had introduced a modified strain of Earth bacteria into the air recycling systems, something harmless to human physiology, but catastrophic to the aliens' respiratory systems. Commander Vextai stumbled onto his bridge, his forearms trembling as his organs began shutting down. Through failing eyes, he watched his tactical display show red warning lights spreading throughout his ship like a virus. "Impossible," he wheezed. "They're just prey animals, weak, defenseless." That's when Dr. Chen stepped onto the bridge, flanked by a dozen other humans who had somehow acquired Zephyrian weapons. Her voice was calm, almost clinical. "Commander, you made the same mistake that every predator makes when it gets too successful. You forgot that evolution never stops. On Earth, we call it the Red Queen hypothesis. Species must constantly adapt not just to survive, but to maintain their position in the ecosystem." She gestured to the displays showing the systematic takeover of his ship. "You've been apex predators for so long you forgot that prey animals don't stay prey forever. They evolve. They adapt. They become something new." Sergeant Rodriguez emerged from a side corridor, dragging an unconscious Zephyrian guard. "Every human on this ship has been fighting to survive since birth, Commander. Our whole planet is a training ground. Weather, disease, accidents, other humans, everything's trying to kill us from day one. You think arena combat scares us? The final phase began as the humans accessed the ship's communication systems. Dr. Chen's team had spent hours studying Zephyrian technology, and what they found was both disappointing and encouraging. Advanced, yes, but built by a species that had never faced serious resistance. Tommy Morrison, the 12-year-old engineer, sat at the navigation console with the focused intensity of someone solving a puzzle. His small fingers moved across alien interfaces as he rerouted the ship's course. Where are we going? Commander Vextai managed to ask. Dr. Chen smiled. Not the expression of defeated prey, but the calculated grin of an apex predator. Home, Commander? We're going home. Your people wanted to see humans fight. They're about to learn what 10,000 angry humans with alien technology can accomplish. The ship turned in space, its destination now Earth, but not as a hunting vessel returning with cargo. Instead, it carried something the galaxy had never seen. Humans who had studied their captors, learned their weaknesses, and evolved beyond their role as prey. As the ship jumped back into hyperspace, Dr. Chen made a ship-wide announcement that echoed through the corridors in both human languages and the Zephyrians' clicking tongue. Attention, all species aboard this vessel. You came to Earth thinking you were hunting prey. You were wrong. You were recruiting an army. The Zephyrian Empire would soon learn that humans didn't just survive being hunted, they remembered it, and they never forgave.